But Herbert Butterfield, he said that, and he wanted to defend historians like himself, who wanted to be honest, but who were not committed to secular points of view. And we are certainly not committed to a secular point of view. And he said, the blindness of the blind, the blindest of the blind, the blindest of the blind are those who are unable to examine their own presuppositions. The blindest of the blind are those who are unable to examine their own presuppositions. Presuppositions being cognitive frames and paradigms, and other things like values. And blithely imagine, happily imagine, no big deal. Blithely imagine, therefore, that they do not possess any. That's really important. And this is one of the most important things that we have to do today, is, to flesh out what are the presumptions in our books. What are the cognitive frames? What are the paradigms? And then, is that valid? Is it not? But to assume that, well, I don't have any. I'm just objective. Like he said, those are the blindest of the blind. People who, as he said, the blindest of the blind are those who are unable to examine their own presuppositions. And we cannot make any progress in education, or science, or history, or anything else until we are able to examine presuppositions and cognitive frames. If you look at the greatness of someone like Albert Einstein, one of the greatnesses of Einstein is that he is able to examine the presuppositions of the Newtonian world. And if you look at things like quantum mechanics, that in quantum mechanics, it's like you see that the Newtonian paradigm, the Newtonian physics is based on a paradigm that the structure of reality is based on the wave and the, the particle. The particle and the wave. That's the great dualism of Newtonian physics. And for hundreds of years, Westerners believed that everything in reality could be studied and could be predicted on the basis of understanding points and waves. Then you get to quantum mechanics, and Einstein also is one of the people who's pushing in that direction, and all of a sudden the point and the wave cannot be distinguished anymore. So the ability to accept things like that, the ability to examine cognitive frames, this is really, really important. The greatness of Malcolm X, Al-Hajj Malik, Shahbaz, Royal Falcon. Shahbaz, he said, but Shahbaz is from Shahbaz, Royal Falcon. Feta, noble youth. Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani is Shahbaz. One of the greatest things about Malcolm is he's always able to re-examine the way he thinks, his cognitive frame. And if he sees it doesn't work, he will change it. That takes genius. That's why Malcolm X is a genius. Malcolm X was a brilliant human being. And it's courageous too, because he will scrap the cognitive frame if he finds that it doesn't work anymore. And he will look for one that is greater. So the blindest of the blind are people who cannot do that. Most human beings cannot do that. Most human beings, and even most thinkers, most academicians, are not capable of examining their paradigms and cognitive frames. They can't do that. And we will see when we look at some of these examples that they're afraid to do that. We'll look, for example, at the Thamudic script. You believe in Thamud. Thamud did exist. Without any question, they exist. And they have a script called Thamudic, which we'll look at. But where do you date it? And how do you date it? And so they will say, well, we'll date that around 500, 600 BC. Why? Because if they date it another 600 years back, they will blow up everything that they believe to be true about the ancient Middle East. So I can't go there. I've got to protect the hypothesis. One of the fallacies of thought, and fallacies are really important to study. You know, I think that's one of the, logic is important, but one of the most important things in logic that I believe we should be teaching people from the beginning are fallacies. Fallacies. You know, for example, you don't speak of individuals as you speak of groups. Don't speak of an individual as you speak of a group. You know, we talk about the will of a nation. Okay, and we might talk about the will of, like, the white middle class in America, in Tea Party America, right? Okay, so that's a valid statement. We can make generalizations about Tea Partiers or about the will of the nation sometimes, like World War II. But you cannot assume that every individual that is in that nation has that worldview. See, that's a fallacy, and it's a very common fallacy. It's a very common fallacy. So fallacies are very important. Saving the hypothesis is a very important a fallacy. Because it's like, if I accept this paradigm that you're talking about, if I accept, for example, we date the Talmudic script at 2000 BC, I would say we date it at 7000 BC. You know, then all the hypotheses about the ancient Middle East are turned upside down. Everything has to be rethought. Everything has to be rewritten. And academicians don't like that. They don't. And so academicians will defend their hypotheses to the death.